What is up, everyone? Today I'll be showcasing an Ultra League team which has gained me more than 300 rating over the past 3 days of battles. I started running this team at the beginning of Ultra League at 3157 rating, and it has carried me up all the way to 3470 and the 14th position on the global leaderboard. So this team has just been absolutely crushing it. It honestly way exceeded my expectations, as I only really started running this team as I wanted to test out the new Annihilape, and I figured it paired quite well with my absolute favorite Pokemon to run in the Ultra League, Heliolisk. Now, Heliolisk did get nerfed at the start of this season. Breaking Swipe now is no longer guaranteed to get an attack drop, which I felt at the beginning of the season would just make Heliolisk absolutely irrelevant. So I was quite sad about that. But I think Heliolisk actually got better, because so many teams I've noticed are absolutely disrespecting it being double or even triple weak to it. So Heliolisk has been feasting, definitely the MVP of this team, but Annihilape was quite good as well as Jellicent. Jellicent's always good, of course. There's no surprise about that. It's in a team for some bulk and also to be very good against fighters like Poliwrath and fire types like Talonflame and Scalar, which I was definitely expecting to see. Anyway, we're gonna head into these battles today. I'll be showcasing just some of the best battles of the last 15 I had, in which actually quite a few of my opponents were running something quite spicy, which I found to be pretty cool. So these are going to be some very fun battles. If you want to see some of the earlier battles I did when I was still like figuring out the team, I will put a link down in the description to my Twitch VOD of the first day of Ultra League when I ran this team for 4 sets. But yeah, these are just some of the final battles I did. So these are versus some very good opponents, and most of them honestly running some pretty interesting stuff. We're starting off with a Registeel lead here. Not the best lead for Heliolisk. Heliolisk just isn't quite at the stat product of some of the legendaries in Ultra League, like Registeel. And Registeel is one of the worst leads I can face. Luckily, they let 2 Thunderbolts go, which means I can actually win that matchup with Heliolisk if I go down 2 shields, which I did. Honestly, generally, I found that to be worth it, because you get out of there with a full health Heliolisk, and generally, they don't have the best counters. Well, this opponent did, though, with the Swampert. I decided to throw Breaking Swipe into the Swampert to get a shield or take some health and to get a debuff, but unfortunately I don't get the debuff. It's only 50% chance now, and this time unfortunately I was unlucky, which means my Annihilape now goes down. I have to bring in Jellicent versus this Swampert. This Swampert is really going on a tear right now. Swampert definitely not the easiest Pokemon to deal with for this team, but both Jellicent and Annihilape have very fine matchups. And Heliolisk can put in some work even without Grass Knot. Now you see I am running Thunderbolt Breaking Swipe on my Heliolisk instead of Grass Knot. I found in general that's just more useful, as Grass Knot is really only good versus one Pokemon, which is Swampert. And Thunderbolt, it's good versus very many Pokemon. So that's why I prefer going Thunderbolt. Anyway, Jellicent takes care of Swampert. In comes a Charizard. Helios is very good here. My opponent decides to wait a turn to try to catch my Thunderbolt, but I was patient. I made sure they could never catch a Thunderbolt by waiting once I got it. And I was gonna throw in the middle of a wing attack, but since I tried to catch, I just farmed down the Registeel, Thunderbolt to Charizard, and that is a good game. Now, like I said, in these final 15 battles, I faced some spicy Pokemon. This is probably one of the spiciest I saw. Whimsicott, which is just a crazy pick, and it absolutely core breaks my team. It resists everything Heliolisk can throw at it. It can throw super effective Grass Knot damage on my Jellicent, and it can one-shot my Annihilape with a Moonblast. So this isn't great, but luckily Whimsicott is just not very high CP in the Ultra League, which makes it exceptionally squishy. Shadow Ball there did a lot. Grass Knot did not knock out my Jellicent, and if they let this Surf go, we just get rid of it. Now, my opponent is a shield up, and they bring out Charizard now, which, when I allow him to get a bunch of energy, could be quite scary. They're already at 5 wing attacks now, which means they're only 2 away from the Blast Burn. So I switch out into Heliolisk, just because I couldn't allow the full farm down. If I would have allowed the full farm down there, they would have just been able to double Blast Burn my Heliolisk. Instead, they're kind of forced to switch out into Swampert now, and I can start Breaking Swiping. I got the first debuff. I'm gonna get the second debuff. At this point, they are forced to Earthquake my Heliolisk if they want to get rid of it, which means they use a lot of their energy. Now I bring out Annihilape, hopefully get a farm down here, and if I can get a full farm down here, I may be able to Ice Punch bait the Charizard, and then throw a Shadow Ball afterwards. Now, the Charizard is already at a Blast Burn. So this is kind of scary, but I have a lot of energy on my Annihilape. I think if I throw an Ice Punch, I may be able to outpace here. It's going to be close, though. It's going to be very close. I shield this Dragon Claw. Go for the Ice Punch. Actually, I don't think I'll be able to ever outpace since they have to go for Dragon Claw. So I'm gonna have to attempt a catch. A catch here on the potential next Dragon Claw. And they do end up throwing it, which is just huge. I think my opponent may have underestimated or overestimated the amount of energy out of my Jellicent and kind of panicked through a Dragon Claw. But that allowed me to just barely get to the Shadow Ball versus this Charizard before they could get to the next Dragon Claw, and we knock it out. Let's go. This is where I really like Annihilape. The coverage with Shadow Ball is just very, very nice, and it hits everything super hard. All right. Galarian Weezing lead is a very tough one for this squad. Honestly, any fairy lead, Clefable, I've seen a lot as well, is kind of tough too. It's really just going to depend on what they have in their back, whether or not you can win this. Usually, Jellicent is quite strong in the back. I found generally like Swampert in the back, so not too bad. They will get to another brutal swing here. And this could actually be an Overheat or a Play Rough, but I let it go. I didn't want to go Shields down. If you're up versus a Clefable, I do recommend shooting up the first Moonblast, because you can get to 2 Thunderbolts before they get to 2 Moonblasts, you CMP, and then you can get them very low in ones. But versus Weezing, I like just play zeros. I fully farm down the Weezing with my Annihilape, with a bunch of energy now. I can Shadow Ball their Jellicent. Unfortunately, this is Ultra League, and everything is super, super bulky. Shadow Ball did not quite knock out, not even close actually, and they have a huge core breaker for my team in the back, Venusaur. Luckily, Venusaur is not something you see very often. This was actually the only one I faced on my entire run. But yeah, don't expect to beat Venusaur, to be honest. Unless you can get like a shield advantage. If you can get a shield advantage, all 3 Pokemon are honestly quite fine. But like this, when I already had kind of a rough lead and a rough switch in, yeah, you don't expect to win there. I'm forced to let this Frenzy go, because the Jellicent already has a Shadow Ball stored. So I was hoping I'd survive that with enough HP to where I could get to maybe an Ice Punch Beta and a Shadow Ball versus Jellicent, but no. I even throw a Shadow Ball here instantly when they came in, maybe thinking they would let that go, because they might think it's an Ice Punch, but no, they shielded up, X me down, and that's a good game. Alolan, Sandslash lead. Now, these are always Shadow Claw with their Powder, so they are much tougher, but this is another reason why I'm running Thunderbolt. Alolan, Sandslash, kind of awkward lead for this team, as Juran does do a lot on Heliolisk. And a lot of opponents are nowadays shooting my Thunderbolts, unfortunately. When I was first running this team, like last season, everyone was running Grassland on Heliolisk, and Alolan Sandslashers were no shooting my Thunderbolts, but now they're shooting, which is not great. But turns out that Heliolisk, if you have a very good one, which I do, can survive one drill run, and will actually win the one shield here. Normally, so what I recommend you do in this matchup, if you have a good Heliolisk, is just no shoot the first. Because I have seen a lot of Alolan Sandslashers bait with Ice Punch. And if they bait with Ice Punch, that puts you in an insane spot where you can just win the 2 shields. But if they throw Drill Run, it's still fine, because I can win the ones there. Now, what is not fine is that they have a Zapdos in the back. A Shadow Zapdos. This is a Pokemon I've seen more often, actually, which is... It's a wild pick, and I love it, to be honest, but it's tough for my team, as it does beat both Annihilape and Jellicent. Luckily, though, my Annihilape will be able to get to double Ice Punch. However, I'm not going to go for it, as they are currently at another Drill Pack. It is a 5-4-5 Thunder Shocks for Drill Pack, if I recall correctly, and they should have been at 2 Drill Packs at that point, so shooting there made no sense, as they would have just thrown the Drill Pack and knocked me out. Also, they could have just caught the Ice Punch and whatever, unlike Poliwrath here, so that's why I decided to put it all on Jellicent. They throw a Thunderbolt, which I shielded, then they try to catch a Surf on their Poliwrath, which luckily I was patient with throwing, and I made sure they couldn't catch, so now I just Shadow Ball the Poliwrath, and now what I have to do is come out of this matchup with a Shadow Ball loaded. If I have a Shadow Ball loaded, should be able to knock out the Zapdos. Scary thing here, though, is that this Poliwrath is debuffing me. And if they debuff me enough, maybe the Shadow Ball won't do enough. Though, Zapdos is already so low, and it's such a squishy Pokemon, that even if they get another debuff here, it probably knocks out. Luckily, they don't get to another Icy Wind, though, and double debuffed. This should still be way more than enough to knock out the Zapdos, and we win another game. GG. Kanto Sandslash. My goodness. That may be the hardest counter to Heliolisk, or at least one of the harder counters. I faced several Swamperts and fighting types in the lead during my run, but at least Heliolisk does like single resisted damage to Volt Switch versus Swampert, and generally neutral damage versus the fighters. Versus Sandslash, it's just double resisted. At least Breaking Swipe was do a lot. But yeah, not a great lead for me, so switch in Jelly, and it turns out they may not have an answer. Night Slash and Scorching Sands did do quite a lot though. Was able to grab a shield with Surf, and now they're bringing out Tentacruel to soak this Shadow Ball, which just does almost nothing. I didn't think I'd reach the next Shadow Ball, so just go for a Surf for a little more chip. And then I let my Jellicent go down. I could have instantly switched onto the Heliolisk there, but I figured since their Tentacruel has a chance to debuff me with Scald, I'd rather keep the switch timer up. So I didn't want to get switch locked first, the Sandslash later. And they did debuff me. Like if they hadn't debuffed me, it would not have been that bad, as I would have probably just gone for a farm down and then throw Breaking Swipes into the Alolan Sandslash, or the Alolan, it's just a regular Kanto Sandslash. But since I got debuffed, I'm glad I kept the timer up, and I can switch it to Annihilape now. The Scorching Sands me. Luckily, don't get debuffed this time. That did a lot, though. Sandslash packs a punch. I actually quite like that coverage. Dark and Ground, that's not too bad, right? What even resists that, right? I guess Mandibuzz. But besides that, that seems like decent coverage. Anyway, we're able to fully farm this down. What's in the back? It is Poliwrath. And Annihilape is very, very good. Well, it's very decent first Poliwrath. Poliwrath can still put in work here. A Scald does do a ton. They can debuff you. Shadow Ball, as you can see, does not quite knock out. So, and counters will do super effective for Heliolisk. But at this point, they don't have enough energy to get to an attack versus my Heliolisk. And I already have a little bit. So only 2 more Volt Switches to get to the Breaking Swipe. And this will knock out the Poliwrath. So very tough lead there. But luckily, Jellicent was just able to completely core break and win that game for me. Tentacruel lead is quite nice for Heliolisk. Heliolisk does get to Thunderbolt in, I believe, 16 turns. Same as Tentacruel gets to Scald, so I was just throw Thunderbolt. Immediately, they almost go down. I bring out Jellicent. They try to time their attack in the middle of my Volt Switch, but they go down to the Hex instead. This seems to be a team that is not very prepared for Heliolisk, as they decide to stay in with their Water type Verzit. So I'm expecting Heliolisk to really feast in the back. Greedent onto Jellicent is of course not too great for me, but I'm still feeling okay about this. I'm still feeling very okay about this, as I just think Heliolisk is gonna do work in the back. And Jellicent, because I didn't get the crunch drop on the first crunch, can survive the next. And they're actually going to be forced to throw a third attack if they want to get rid of my Jellicent. So I'm still going to put in some work here with Surfs. I believe at some point I should be able to switch out into Annihilape as well, like right now. But I do not think that's worth it. At this point, I am expecting something weak to Heliolisk in the back. And if that's like a Charizard, switching into Annihilape right now would be my lose con, as that would mean that the Charizard, for example, will get a lot of farm and be able to like blast bird my Heliolisk 3 times when I bring it in. Doesn't end up being a Charizard though, but it's a Jellicent, so still I am very happy that I did not switch out my Annihilape right there, instead just let my Jellicent go, because now I can get my Heliolisk locked into the Jellicent. Now, Heliolisk is very squishy. If I don't get drops here, the Surf is pretty much at risk of knocking me out. So that's not great. I didn't get the debuff on the first. Also, timing your attacks versus Jellicent is very, very annoying. They get to the Surfs very, very quickly. The best timing, the optimal timing here with 4-turn attack versus 3-turn attack is 2 Volt Switches and then you're Breaking Swipe. But you can't always do that, because they just get to their Surfs so quickly. Also, I didn't get the debuff 3 times in a row now, which may mean this Surf's gonna knock out, but luckily it doesn't. And I'm a normal type, so these Hexes also do nothing. They try to switch out there to catch an attack, but I was patient. I didn't throw it. I switch out with it instead. Go into my Annihilape. They crunch me. I don't care. We're gonna go for an Ice Punch here and win this game. Yeah, in this game you can really see why I prefer Heliolisk over something like an Ampharos, because Ampharos I don't think would have done as well of a job there beating the Jellicent, as you are taking neutral from Hexes instead of double resisted like Heliolisk. Next match, Heliolisk picks up another great lead into Charizard, and my opponent decides to switch out into Annihilape, which I answer with Jellicent. Jellicent, my best answer to Annihilape pivot. Not a great answer, to be honest, as they do a ton of damage with Shadow Ball, of course, but still, you should be able to win this matchup very consistently as long as you switch fast enough and just let the first attack go, you're fine. I did not realize that in Ultra League Annihilapes were running Night/2, so I kind of overfarmed a bit too much there, and I allowed the Annihilape to strip a shield of my Jellicent, which is just a horrible play, to be honest, because at this point, Charizard is a huge threat to my team. It's a huge threat, as if it farms out my Jellicent now, I only have one shield to use on a potential Blast Burn. They got a lot of farm here. They may be able to Dragon Claw bait me and Blast Burn me like super quickly before I even get to a Breaking Swipe at Heliolisk, which is super scary. Luckily, still able to grab a shield, and I took a bunch of health off of the Charizard with a Surf, so still feeling finer, especially once I see the Greedent come in. This game is just over. I am patient. I build up to a Breaking Swipe. Heliolisk does win the charge attack priority versus Charizard, so having that for later is super key. This Greedent also didn't get debuff and crunch, which is great. However, I don't think it really matters, because ultimately what I just want to do here is get up to 2 Ice Punches, throw one, then we're going to farm down. As long as I have an attack loaded on my Annihilape, getting out of this, I'm looking very good. And even if I didn't, then Heliolisk probably farms down anyway. I throw an Ice Punch here. That's honestly probably a mistake, but I was figuring they would shoot there anyway, and then I can just bring in the Heliolisk, Breaking Swipe it, and that should knock out the Charizard. Actually, it doesn't knock out the Charizard, but next Full Switch Boot. So my opponent concedes the match as they know it's over. Just like this video, that was the final battle. Hope you enjoyed. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.